Ready, ready. Hey, hey. It's the Green Believers. We're back. COVID-19. We still kicking that ass. This is your girl, Shirley. Girly, we're so happy I'm in the studio, Whitey.
Can you believe this?
I haven't
She's in
been
the
here since
studio.
March. OMG, guys. Welcome to our weekly podcast. This is the everything that you need to know about cannabis show with the Green Believers. I'm here in the studio with my partner, my road dog, Whitey from Whitey Enterprise. Hello to Rashid, our wonderful engineer, and we have a hot guest today. You guys are going to love this one. We got old school cannabis leadership in the house. So this is exciting. Welcome, welcome.
Well, I'm happy to see you back. It's been a while. It's been a while. You graduated in a whole lot of different ways since you've been gone. Social equity is on the top front. We back at it. We do what we do. And how can you say, welcome back home?
Thank you. Thank you. It feels so good to be back here. As you guys know, we meet week to week. We've been doing this since legalization happened in California, 2019. We started this particular podcast to kind of capture the stories, mark important policies and highlights, and mostly to bring tools for collaboration, growth, and raising awareness, media moments to help our brothers and sisters. This social equity population is what we call it here in California, and we're going to talk more about that. If this is your first time listening today, check us out. We can be found on Instagram, The Green Believers. You can go to our website, thegreenbelievers.com. Check us out. Hit us up, send us your notes, podcast comments, criticism, and we will respond to you. So what a time. What could we be talking about today in COVID? It is now September 16th. We're 6 months, solid 6 months in to the worst pandemic, economic, and just social disruptor that I've seen, in a long time since You've Got Mail. You guys remember that? That was the last big disruption that am I dating myself? So, well, good. Today we are going to be talking about, it's election season, so we're raising up our 70 million votes team, and we're starting to get active. And today our special guest is Ian from LA NORML. Can you believe that? We've got Ian, the master dude in the house, Ian Rassman, and he is here from LA NORML, California NORML, 50-year-old organization. I am a proud pen owner. I have a pen of Los Angeles NORML, one of the oldest traditional patient consumer representative groups that we have in the state, and I'm just so honored. Welcome, Ian. So glad to have you.
Oh, seriously, such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me today. Really, a thrill for me. Thank you.
So there's so many things going on for our listeners. You all know that we're right in the thick of the final 45, 60 days in our election. So really an important time to begin to get educated and really start thinking about where you want to be on this side of history. So California will start taking ballots, I believe, October 5th. So that's something to write down. If you haven't done it, you got about 2 more weeks to get your ballot, your paperwork, find out your status online. And I hear that Uber is giving out support for that. So use your phone or your pad to check that out. So because of that, today our topic is going to center around consolidating this cannabis influence. So as growers, as 50-year-old leaders in this field that have been, advocating and pushing for this for quite some time. We're going to all have to come together. There's maybe about 30 groups, I would estimate, and maybe Ian will help me clarify that, across the country that really are the players and the community-driven stakeholders in cannabis legal licensing. And we believe it's time that we consolidate this influence so that we can be prepared to get our space in 2021 under the new president, who's ever going to win. So how do we do that? Where do we begin? We're starting by forming our partnership with Normal LA and going all in to lay infrastructure and build, these pathways to sustainability, talking about some of the hard places. So maybe I'm going to invite Ian to kind of take us back. There's the Controlled Substance Act, which is where it all started 50 years ago, right?
Oh, my.
He's going to tell us a little bit about that, some of us. So get your pencils and paper out because you're getting ready to get a history lesson. All right, so tell us, what is the Controlled Substance Act and why does it matter to us today, Ian?
The Controlled Substance Act is truly a terrifying piece of legislation. It was introduced 50 years ago this month, and it passed with virtually no debate in Congress, right? Okay, so it was directly responsible for the explosion in the U.S. prison population over the past half century. So, as we all know, the U.S. incarcerates more people than any other country in the world, even including countries we think of as authoritarian, like Russia, China, Iran, etc. We're the leaders of that.
We have more people incarcerated than Russia. Come on now.
Yes, we do.
Not all of them. Not all of them combined. No, for sure, not all of them combined, right? But on a per popular, yeah. we lock them up, right? And we've turned it into a commercial enterprise, locking them up. So going back to 1968, right? Just before the Controlled Substances Act, President Nixon's advisor, John Ehrlichman, later admitted after all this was said and done, he said, I'm going to read you a direct quote here, because this is truly shocking, right?
It's on tape, y'all.
It's not so
listen
shocking
up,
for you,
listen
Whitey. I
up,
know
listen
you know the
up.
history here. But this is, if you haven't heard this before, this will floor you for a minute. So the Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. That's a direct quote from President Nixon's, one of his senior advisors. I mean, that's kind of shocking and scary there. And especially that it passed with hardly any discussion.
Feedback, any feedback. No feedback at all.
This was
I like that
1968. This was the year that Martin Luther King was also assassinated.
Yeah.
So it was a coordinated effort that it was just all-out war on blacks. And
Yeah.
so what's different today? I mean, I think that's...
I'm going to help in a little
Good
bit.
Lord.
I'm
Good
gonna
Lord.
I'm going to help in.
Tell me, Whitey.
In 1986, they came up with the crack law. The crack law was put together just to destroy the black community again, because the black community started teaming up and started buying properties all over the United States, and it was a whole lot of cocaine that Ronald Reagan, Oliver North, Poindexter brought in the United States. They called it the Conquer War, but reality was that they got caught giving drugs to the people of Los Angeles to give guns to Nicaragua. So they came and they passed a bill in Congress, and they made the drug law 100-1, and the black people of the churches went along with it. And when they looked up, it was 20 years later, and the whole generation, 2 generations of black kids was in prison. And then they looked up and said, "What happened?" And then they said, "Oh, you guys put them in prison because you guys went with the myth that the only thing that black people did was sold drugs, and we took advantage of it, and we put them in jail for long life sentences.
Starting with the 1968 Controlled Substance Act laid the framework
Yes.
to introduce that messaging
Yeah.
and then put a law in place. And then Ronald Reagan and his friends come along in the early 1980s and reinforce it and kind of take it to the
Correct.
next level.
They just merged it together.
Right. So
Yeah.
you set this course, and then it heats up in the 80s, and by 95, you've got a privatized system, because I believe the Corrections Corporation of America was the first, launched as a private corporation in the late 90s. Yeah. So there's a clear milestones. You can see the public policies. So this is what matters to us in cannabis, folks. When we have you go through these leadership classes and the business development components, it's to help prepare your mindset. And to also equip you with some of this history, because if you know where you came from, it's a lot better to then plan where you want to go. If you don't know, that's what they say.
there.
So I think that's really important. So there was complicit consensus among our elected leaders
Yes.
that blacks were to carry this burden, and that's what we're fighting for right now. So how do
100%.
we get justice and mercy to merge with some reparations? Because I think they're okay with apologies, and giving the legislation is an attempt, but it's like pulling teeth and herding cat to get the capital, the access to capital, and some of the other things that we need to really prepare these social equity businesses to get off the ground and thrive. So that's why we need the advocacy this season, right?
It's important to get
I mean,
involved.
oh my God,
Yeah.
70 million votes, Whitey. This is why we need that. We need to
Yes.
get people to weigh in.
That's why for us being technical assistants, I and my team can sit back and give guidance so the people won't go in these little traps, because it's going to be so many different kind of traps. It's going to be like the gun trap. They're going to come and try to put a whole lot of people who sell weed legally in jail for having a gun inside their place. So this is why they're going to have to come to the Green Believers. They're going to have to come to the end. They're going to have to come and understand that if you don't understand, you're going to have to pay for it down the line. And we can't afford to let everybody fall in these traps that have been put together in 1968 to 1986 to 2020. We cannot afford to let people walk in these traps and get destroyed, because now it's some people around right now today who understand all these traps and can sit back and teach these classes and keep them from not complying with the rules and regulations of the social equity program, Cheryl.
We do. We need that. One of the most important things I can offer to the model, because now other places are coming on board. You got Wyoming coming on board. I talked to somebody in Nebraska. We've got Long Beach. I just recently was talking to some folks from Long Beach this morning. Now they're talking about a technical assistance, and I was explaining that to them. Whitey, the hardest part, the subject matter experts are available. You, our folks from UCLA, Dr. Delara, Brad. We can get that part. It's engineering this process of how do you change your mindset, and I think that's where your team comes in. I value that because it gave Green Believers, which now we're going to link up with Normal LA, and we're going to make this available to everyone. But it's a sequence of steps that helps them to rebuild their thinking.
Yes.
Because you have to, the people that I found is the hardest to work with, those that have already been doing cannabis, because they have to unlearn something versus the people, even the good old white boys that just come in, they're brand new, they're listening. Okay, from get-go, they got to do compliance, track and trace.
Yep.
You can't have a gun in the da-da-da-da. So it's teaching people that they've been doing that other way for 25 years, and they've made millions of dollars. They're looking at me like, no, bitch, what are you talking about? So that's where I was explaining that to Long Beach leadership. I don't know how you legislate that. That's where the compromise comes in, because of the war on drugs, the Controlled Substance Act, the things that drove this. This is what they owe, in a sense, that you give them at least that time. We need at least 4 classes, which is maybe 30 hours of just let us educate you.
So see when
Just get an education.
when Ian talked about the Substance Act, he talked about it in a part, but there's another part of the act that go away from the Substance Act. It's the Arms Act. And the people who's in these stores, they assume that because they have a security guard, that security guard can walk inside the store, be in the presence of weed, and think that it's legal because he's a security guard. These are little hurdles that we're gonna have to help them get around, because if they have a gun anywhere inside their store, they got to pay for it with a 3321, and that's a 5-year penalty. And then they're gonna piggyback it with an 841, 846. So they're gonna end up turning around and give them a 12-year sentence for stupidity, because they didn't come and sit down with me and Ian and you to understand what we're trying to teach them, so they won't fall through these loops. So this is what we really work on, and this is what the Green Believers is really about. You guys got to go vote. That's good. Vote normal. You know, we're gonna smoke and smoke. We're gonna do all those little things. The Green Believer is gonna give you the necessary information that's gonna make you understand that you can be successful in this industry. We're gonna teach you everything about compliance. This is our job. My boss gonna make sure I keep on telling people how I say
the
it.
education you guys are putting out there is critically important. I mean, it's absolutely vital to building successful infrastructure and successful businesses, no doubt. So
I think we have to do that first. Our obligation is to create tax-paying businesses, because that's what the legislation was designed. If we do that first, well, then, you know, we'll stay in business so we can get a pen. Like, you got to stay in business long enough to create an adult, right?
So right now, we in the process of doing 70 million votes. 70 million votes is about 70 million ex-offenders. And we're trying to team up with all the rest of the people who want to help out and help each other vote right this year. We need the right people on our team to be successful in the weed industry. But most important, we need the right people to open their eyes to see the myth that's being put in front of their eyes. And people is dying left and right. And we tired of this, and we need to make sure that everybody is healthy and safe. And that's what the weed industry is about. It's all about health, because you've been around for a while, and it was about medical marijuana that helped people. And I understand that you got 50 years in. I got 50 years in the other field in, but I'm trying to bring all my knowledge to the weed industry so we can help out and teach everybody the right way to go. So that's where we at.
I want a pen.
That's fantastic. I have a pen in the car for you too, Whitey. Don't you worry, my friend.
Oh, you guys see this? This is nice. This is nice. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. It's a big deal. You know, it's our 50-year anniversary.
50 years.
I mean, who's been doing it?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. It sounds so nice to hear it from you,
That's
Whitey, but I can
really
hardly take credit
awesome.
for like 50 years myself. Normal and I turned 50 at the same time. I only turned 50 myself. I've hardly been advocating for that long, right? But I am lucky enough to be able to attach myself to an organization that has been fighting for consumer rights for 50 years. That's really a huge thing. So
It's amazing. So tell us about the MORE Act. So the so write this down, folks. Controlled Substance Act. These are the foundations. You will get these subjects in more depth when you come through Green Believers classes. But then there's something that's going on right now. 2020 is the MORE Act. This is another piece of federal legislation that matters to cannabis. Smoke the vote. That's what we're getting ready for, right?
We're getting ready
What
to talk
is
about
the MORE
Smoke the Vote.
Act? What does MORE stand for? I want more.
More, M-O-R-E. Don't we all want
I
more?
want more.
We all want more. It's a good name. So it's the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment Expungement Act. And I think as of last count, we have 108 members of the House of Representatives that are signed up to support this. So that's pretty good. This is looking good in the House, and it's important that we get it through the House. I know you're smiling over there, Whitey. It's not the end of the battle. Clearly not, but it is an important step forward to take us to the next phase. And you know, being that we're all in Los Angeles, actually there's some very significant parts of the MORE Act that are directly going to benefit us here in Los Angeles. So I think
Tell us about that.
yeah. So, well, we all know that LA is like the largest cannabis-friendly city on the planet.
Yes, it
right? Like,
is.
nobody would argue with that.
This is the most scandalous market in the world.
But it's
I'm
friendly.
sorry.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
come on.
It's friendly though. It's friendly. I mean, it's
okay,
friendly.
it is Hollywood. You're right. It's
Hollywood.
friendly.
You know,
You can have a margarita.
There's no doubt that you can walk down the streets of parts of LA, Hollywood, you know, smoking a joint, and
Right,
you're not going to get
right.
harassed by
Hey,
the
True,
police.
that's
It's
true.
friendly,
For the
baby.
most
True.
part. For the most
You
part.
being served right now.
So it's a friendly city towards cannabis and towards the consumer aspect and as well as towards the industry. So we have a significant portion of the industry of the California industry here in Los Angeles. A couple things about LA. I think you guys know we are the population of LA is greater than that of 41 states.
Yes.
Let that
I
sink in for
know.
just a second, right? Like
41. It's only 50
40
states.
yeah.
So we're like
we're in,
we're in the
leading
country.
pack.
We're the country.
California clearly
we
ahead of us.
we
but-
would drive the world.
But you know what? Them 9 mean ass southern states. They're a
we're
damn
one of 'em now.
booger.
We're one of 'em.
They're a booger. You know. They always have been. Them people don't leave them 9 states alone.
So the MORE Act, what's it going to do? Because of our population, we stand to disproportionately gain from the passage of the MORE Act. So the MORE Act, as I mentioned, is going to decriminalize marijuana. Very specifically, it's going to remove marijuana from the Scheduled Substances Act and eliminate criminal penalties for any individuals who manufacture, distribute, or possess marijuana. This is of critical importance. As well, there's a distinction in a word that I used there, which is descheduling. We don't want to move cannabis from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 2 or a Schedule 3. We want it descheduled off the scheduling. Right?
Deschedule. That's the soundbite.
critical.
Hashtag deschedule.
Hashtag deschedule.
Got it.
We do not
Deschedule
want
cannabis.
rescheduling here, okay? We just don't need to, label it as another type of schedule. So this bill also replaces statutory references to marijuana with cannabis. And this is also important because the very etymology of the word marijuana has very dark racist origins. It's a Mexican word, and it was definitely used to label people coming across the border back in the 30s with William Randolph Hearst and reefer madness. So it's just a bad word. We got to get away from it. The MORE Act also establishes a trust fund to support various programs and services for individuals and businesses in communities that were impacted by the war on drugs. This is where it's important for LA, right, with our large population. A couple other things it's going to cover: a 5% tax on cannabis products and requires revenues to be deposited into this trust fund. It makes small business administration loans and services available to entities that are cannabis related. It prohibits the denial
Like that one.
Yeah, right? It prohibits the denial of federal public benefits to a person on the basis of certain cannabis-related conduct or convictions.
Wow.
Again, very important for us in Los Angeles. It prohibits the denial of benefits and protections under the immigration laws on the basis of cannabis-related events. Again, Los Angeles is very important for us. We're a big immigrant society here. And it also establishes a process to expunge convictions and conduct sentencing review hearings related to federal cannabis offenses. These things are all very important, but why is it important to Los Angeles? So due to our large population, the passage of this bill may release federal money and assistance disproportionately to LA County. There are 11 members of Congress in LA that could have influence on the passage of this legislation, right? So recently, we wrote letters to these representatives asking them to sign on to support this legislation.
We need to write letters to all of them. We
Yes,
do
we
too.
do.
We have all of
Yes,
our
we
people in
do.
Green Believers, Whitey Enterprise. We need to click our buttons and get these 11 members of Congress. How many from
Absolutely.
California? Not 11 from California.
We got 11 in LA.
11
in
Congress.
LA. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, in California, is 11.
Say what?
So
Say
how,
what?
how he broke that down, Cheryl?
Say what?
You got 11. So how he broke that down in layman's terms? Let's go
Just
to
break
layman's
that down.
terms.
Can you
Yes,
break
please.
that down for us, Whitey?
This new issue what they bringing up to the House, and they're gonna put it in committee. They're gonna transfer marijuana to the Farm Bill because it's a vegetable, it's a plant, It must go to the farm bill. It must come out of a subsection 2 category. It must be took out of the statute, so it will never be a law against anyone again. So once you put it in the farm bills, automatic it becomes legal for anybody and everybody to grow marijuana with no penalties. That's what they did.
That
with
would be
hemp.
nice. That's called
That what they-
descheduling.
That's what they did.
Yeah, it's not a crime anymore.
That's
It's a plant, people. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
a crime.
That's what
That's
they did.
descheduling.
That's what they did with the hemp 2 years
Mhm,
ago.
that's right.
They took the hemp out of category 2 and put it in the farm bill.
They
So
did.
now they're gonna repeat the same thing over for the marijuana bill. They're gonna take the marijuana out of substance 2, transfer it to the farm bill, and once it go in the farm bill, everybody's gonna be able to grow it. No, there's not gonna be any penalties, and you can go under cultivation and get you a agriculture license and grow marijuana.
So right now is the time to get your businesses ready, folks.
Yes.
Did you hear that? We got a couple of action steps we can take. So we're gonna join Normal LA. We're joining up forces, and then California, Normal, and then we'll take it to our national partners. And we want to contact our Congress members, and we'll send you guys a list. We're gonna make a list of those 11. And get their emails, because we're virtual activists right now. It's not normal times.
We've got that on our website.
You've got that, so
Yeah.
you guys are gonna go to the website. Let's give
Normal.
out that website, LA Normal,
LANORML.org. Go to our website.
NORML, not NORMAL. Some of you people, I've had some people say,
Go
"Well,
lazy
I'm
with the
putting it
spelling
in there." I
and
know.
drop the A. Just NORML. But LANormal.org. Go there. We have a pre-formatted letter. You can literally copy and
Oh,
paste it.
love it. We're gonna
and,
send that out.
Oh yeah, 100%. Copy paste that. It's written by professionals smarter than me.
That's
a great thing.
awesome.
And
And
it's
then
in
we can weigh in
Congressman
on that.
speak.
Yeah,
It's in Congressman speak.
that's
so,
good.
And it'll lay out as well some of these bullet points on why it's important to LA. I want to cover expungement. This is a huge thing.
Okay,
right?
let's talk about
right?
that.
So the MORE Act would expunge the records of those with prior cannabis convictions, as we mentioned a moment ago. Now, a study by the Government Accountability Office found that Los Angeles County had the most per capita arrests of any major county in the United States during the period from 1980 to 2010.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
1980 to 2010, we had
Bigger
the
than
most.
41 states. Don't forget it. It's
So
always driving
we
it,
got a right
right?
to make a lot of noise
we
here.
do.
Whitey, can you
They're
help us
making
get
a
the
big
word out
splash.
through the
I'ma-
folks?
I'ma
This
say-
is the time. If these Negroes don't step
I'ma
up
help
now,
I'ma help
tell
Ian
them this.
again.
And these Vato brothers
Break it
arrived
down,
on
Whitey.
them.
Ian,
Break
Hey.
it down.
I'm about to help Ian again.
Break it down, Whitey.
Green
Under-
Believers.
Under rule of engagement under criminal law, of expungement is still is a conviction. I hate to tell you that. It's still a conviction. And under the guidelines, United States of America, under the sentence guideline, they can take an expungement and use it as a criminal predicate to give you some more time with it.
Huh.
So we need them to delete every criminal case, vacate it and dismiss it, not to expunge it.
Yeah.
Because there's still a penalty
Right.
phase that go along with it. So we need to tell them that we don't want it expunged. We want it to be vacated and dismissed so it will not be on his record.
So those will become some negotiating points.
Yes, you know, it's like
Because you
I
know
hear
some
that.
good white folks obviously wrote expungement because
Yeah.
they just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't
Yeah.
know.
Because you always
So that's good. We
you
want to
always get an
vacate and
opportunity-
dismiss.
You always get an opportunity for a lawyer to make some money off of the people, and they got to fight real hard to get that conviction off. So if the legislator will remove it for us and keep that expungement stuff to the side, that means all the people in the city of Los Angeles would be able to put itself right in front of everybody and say, I don't have a conviction for marijuana anymore. So you don't have to worry about that scat scan coming back saying, oh, you got a weed case.
Yeah.
Because they do come up.
It
Now,
does come up.
This is
So that's good.
significant because
That's
it's
good
it's
clarification.
a barrier to employment
Yeah,
sometimes,
it is.
and that's a huge thing.
So this is our job. This is what we
So
do.
this is what we do. So 70 million votes will take up. We support the MORE Act
Yes.
with some amendments,
Yes.
if possible. And this is where the publicly skilled leaders classes come in. How do you negotiate that win? Because you don't want to beat them over the head. If they're a little tender, then they're not going to want to give up the right to incarcerate and agitate people of color because of what we already read from the 1968 plan.
Yeah, you know.
They were very explicit. So when you try to take that away, this is the new type of advocacy training that our folks are going to need. These are negotiating terms because vacate and dismiss means it's over.
It's over.
And America's almost there. They're just talking about it. I was a social worker back in the day. So when we would talk to drug addicts, this is how I learned about cannabis legalization because I worked for treatment programs. You had to slow walk them sometimes. You know, you couldn't just say, you know, even though it makes sense, you know. So I get this. This is really important clarification. So that's the MORE Act could give us some relief, but there's still more to it.
Yeah.
Especially during these troubling economic times, right?
Yes.
Like, you know, you don't need to be holding people down from getting jobs, right? That's
Because, you know, it's like every young man and every young lady who had a weed case, when they try to walk through that door, that conviction's going to stay on their back. And they're not going to allow them in because they're going to say you had a narcotics case. And with that narcotics case, it stopped them from getting the major jobs that they should receive.
Well, that's why we want the 70 million votes, because let's tell you guys the long term. So there's short-term goals. There's short-term things we can do, like right away. But then there's this movement that's with us another 400 years. And this is where the OGs and the historical leaders, that this is where they will spend their time until they're not here no more.
Yes.
It's helping us to be these advocates that are just going to constantly... This is what we will learn from normal, the behaviors of a team coming together to stand for 50 years. And we haven't had that, you know, so we're building that. That's what's at stake with Green Believers and what we're building. If we can get these people to stick around, we may actually repeal this and get what's actually due, making a case, you know, that people really get completely forgiven. So I think this is awesome, Whitey. This is where our people...
Yeah, you know.
Y'all gotta stand up.
Hey,
stand up.
Like Ian said, like basically this right here is put on front of the table. But I was always told when somebody puts something on the table and tell you, look how pretty that is. They got a knife in the back of them saying, we're gonna stab you this way. And you know, Ian, you sitting here with us today, you gonna learn some things from me. I'm gonna learn some things from you. And iron sharpen iron. And when you put it in the fire and come out, and all of you guys on the same team, you can attack the world in your own manner and teach the community what they need to know so they won't be penalized for something down the line. And I really appreciate the opportunity just to sit here and have this conversation with you, because it's not many people who do any of this. They just sit back and they talk about it, but they don't understand what they're talking about. Because if you walk in any room and tell somebody about the Substance Act, they'd be like, okay, I understand. But when it's time to have an opportunity to elaborate on it, they'd be dead in the water because they don't know what the hell they talking about. Yeah. And I sit back and I tell everybody, man, I took law. And that's the bad thing about me. I took law, and I'm qualified to have this conversation. And I like to be in the room with people who are qualified to have different conversations to enlighten me on things that I don't know. And since you brought it up, I just wanted to make sure that when you walk back in a room and you had this conversation with other people, you tell them like, hey, the sponges sound good, but it only sounds good to the people who don't understand how to open their eyes to see the real thing, what you're trying to do to our people on the slide. Right. Your people, my people, we in the same boat. Yep. And we tired of being mistreated. Like when Richard Nixon boy came in but this really started in 1964, when they said, oh, Richard Nixon, what we gonna run on? He said, oh, we're gonna run on crime. And if you take it back today and you ask, what are you running on? Donald Trump said, we're running on crime. It's the same playbook that Richard Nixon played in 1964 to become the president of the United States.
We're going to be smart this time and not repeat the past.
We're not supposed to repeat the past.
What do you think? I don't know. I'm scared.
I'm not scared.
I'm scared too.
I'm not scared.
Well, because he's got a melting pot. So these are some of the wild cards. As we're going to take for a few minutes to discuss this. The Asian American population, they like him because he stood up to China. So you got the Japanese voting community, you got the Filipino voting community, and all the other APIs. They stood up. So that's what I hear when I hear from my friends like that. Like, okay, so that's enough to make you vote for him. And their answer is yes.
Hey,
So think about that. This is what this is what they give him credit for.
I see what
He's
you
a
guys saying.
he's a racist, but he's not hiding it. That's what I hear from other people, especially my white friends. Well, black people should know where you stand now.
Okay.
And isn't that better in comparison? Because you're not going to get everything you want. We're going to have to choose where to begin. So I'm just like, geez, I don't know. And then from blacks that are voting Republican, what I've heard from them is these Democrats are the reason we're in this position. They were there when all these rules were passed. They stayed in those positions for 30 years. They didn't have a 30-year campaign fighting the war on drugs and the incarceration of black and brown people. So they were telling me it's the same group. The Democrats and the Republicans,
They're the
same
same group.
group.
I say it all the time, but now I'm going to differ from all of that conversation. In
Bring us
2000,
back to LA.
in 2016, when you looked at the races in different places, the only reason why he won to be president of the United States because the 50,000 blacks didn't go to the polls in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania.
That's true. Battleground states.
This year,
So that's the
this
thing.
year-
California doesn't need
look,
us. We're
no.
needed in other states
This
to
year-
kind of get them going.
this year, Pennsylvania, I would say it because I look at the news a lot and get educated by accident. They got added 145,000 people in Democratic seats. Democratic people have signed up to go vote. He only won Pennsylvania by 22,000 votes. In Wisconsin, 147,000 people have signed up. Democrats have signed up to vote. Again, this way he lost. In Memphis, 210 new Democrats, 210,000 new Democrats have signed up to vote. So when you add it up, that blew Walters back up.
So let's bring it all home, y'all, because we're coming through the second half of our hour. So understanding that the popular vote is rising, the registrations for the blue side is rising, and we can predict some of the battleground states are going to vote Democrat. So how do we bring this back home? Because the election is decided by those few people that are the Electoral College. So it's how do we get this popular vote to influence the people in each of their states to go with the popular vote. Like, we're going to have to back into that. So that brings us to LA. How many delegates we have here, and how do we get those delegates talking to delegates in the battleground states using our national relationships? The one good thing about the faith-based roots we have is Christian churches are all over the world.
Yes.
There isn't a place that we couldn't go to that I couldn't, okay, let me call Bishop so-and-so and find out who's our contact when we go to Nairobi. You know what I mean? Whatever. So that's where I think, what do you think about a strategy? I'm asking you to, Ian, if we were to link up and start really counting the electoral votes and seeing where we need to spend time talking to them, messaging them, finding out who they listen to, and spend our 30 days, because we got 30 days, October 1 through November 3rd, to really execute a plan, our push, smoke the vote, 70 million votes. Yeah, this is our work. What do you think about that? I mean, who's our local candidates? Like, I want to see somebody in that supervisor seat.
I'll tell you who's your local.
Who's our local?
So here's what you do. You go to vote.normal.org. And
Got it.
right there, you plug in your zip code.
Okay, let me see. I'm going to do it. I'm doing it, folks.
You can keep on talking, Lynn.
Yeah. So plug in your address or your zip code at vote.norml.org, and you will find out who represents you. As well, you're going to find out what their positions are on cannabis, right? So you're going to be able to pull up. We're going to see Cheryl's representatives here in a moment.
Okay, I'm doing mine.
And we're going to be able to pull up a report card on them.
Oh, they want
A
a
through F.
9-digit.
Like, we all know what that means, right? So so we've given them a rating based upon their current
Participation.
position,
Okay.
their previous voting record, as well as their public comments, anything they've said about it. And we're going to list all that out.
You have to have your
vote.normal.org.
9-digit zip code.
Or you
I don't
can
have
type
my
in your address.
9-digit.
You can
I don't.
type in your address.
Oh, I can type in my
Yeah.
address. I was gonna say I don't know how to get my I gotta go.
Yeah, I
through
know.
some
I
steps.
had to go.
Okay,
look
so
at
we're
my
gonna help
before.
everybody work on that. But got it. So you get in there. This is awesome. So
Yeah.
you put in your. Okay.
Put in your
Okay.
address or your zip code right there, and you're going to
Mhm.
find out who's in your area as well as what their positions are. And when you go to the ballot box, you're going to know how they stand
For
on
what you want.
For what you want, exactly.
Sooner or later, the people of America are gonna find out that Trump this Trump. If you guys want to cry foul to Mitch McConnell and Pelosi. Those is the leaders of those chambers. Everybody keep on crying foul on Trump. Trump did this, Trump did that. Mitch McConnell is the man who drives the whole function of Washington. And everybody just don't understand how politics works. When you up there and you sitting in the Senate dictates to the world how it's going to work. Everybody don't want to accept it for some strange reason. But when you had those 51 votes and you the head of the Senate, you could overrule everybody. And if you powerful enough, you can get 75 votes.
There it is, folks.
You can get 75 votes and overturn and make the president shut up also. Because when you have those 75 votes in the Senate, you can do whatever you want to do if 75 people is on your side. And the president's got to sign everything in the law.
All right,
He
so
have no
we've
veto
got
power.
That's fine,
in
Cheryl.
my district, I'm 3320 South Central Avenue 90011, and our state assembly district 59 is Reginald Sawyer Jones. So you can vote for Reginald.
Give us our A's and B's on that
Yes,
list. Yeah.
Reginald Sawyer Jones. He's an A. He gets an A plus, so he's got a great record. He was California Normal 2017 Legislator of the Year, and he is our friend. He's one of the only legislators that actually lit up a joint.
See,
And
gave him an A.
right, and then he got an A plus for the light up. Because
probably
you
where
remember
the
Trump
plus
said,
was,
you know,
yeah.
I did an A, but you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
if you get that plus,
Yeah.
kind of, you know.
Yeah.
And then we got Elena Gonzalez, which is awesome. She gets an A. Lucille Roy Bayaler, we got some educating to do with Lucille. She got a B minus, so this is great. Dianne Feinstein got a C. So we've really got to talk with her and get her educated and
You know,
see
she's still on that
if
old
we can
thing.
bring her on.
She's one of those persons who did a whole lot to hurt us. But
It says that here that she opposed Prop 215 and
Yeah.
64.
That's why
So we've got to
she's
use
down
some
there.
of our
Yeah.
faith-based leaders to influence her.
one day
We
we're
got to
gonna
do
find
some horse
somebody
trading.
one day we're gonna find somebody to replace her.
Kamala Harris is there. She gets an A. So we definitely need to give her a platform that
She's the sponsor of the MORE Act.
exactly. So we need to really get her on. Possibly, maybe we can try to do a joint something together over the next 30 days. I think that Elena Kounalakis, B minus. So we can get with her. Gavin Newsom, he gets a B. So hey, you know, this is what we need to do. And then of course we've got people running locally here in this. Could you imagine if we can tap into the unincorporated areas of the county? Ooh. So our candidate for LA County, you guys know I love me some Herb Wesson. That's who we want. That's who we want. We want to try to get him in there to the county. I think we'll do well. But we can't decide. You decide. Get educated
we
by
need to
going
put-
to this
vote.
normal website.
We need to put Herb Weston in one of these 70 million vote shirts. And
We do, and have
you
him
know,
come. We'll
yeah,
talk
that's
with
what
him
we
about
need.
that.
That's what we need
Mhm.
Herb to do. And in other words, I'm saying it like this, you know, vote normal. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna smoke the vote. We're gonna do all these things. We're gonna
Smoke
we're gonna do the
the
70
vote.
million
Smoke
outreach to
the
everybody
vote.
because we ex-convicts
Smoke the vote.
and we only know one thing to win. They may say we lose, but we don't know how to lose when the deck is stacked against us. We win and win and win and win, and they find other avenues to try to destroy us. So here we are again. We at the half-hour point. The Green Relievers is here. We got Ian with us. He's doing what he do. I got Cheryl back off vacation. She's doing what she gonna do.
I've been in the pandemic.
Yeah.
I've been in quarantine.
You
He
know.
acts like I've been on vacation. Like I went to Maui
been,
for.
Cheryl?
I wish, right? I've been at home watching the news, terrified like everybody else.
She been in some other country.
I'm grateful
I don't know what's
that I
that
have
country
a
called.
home
you
that
know.
I could be safe in. I'm grateful right
Cheryl,
now.
I really appreciate
Not
you.
homeless, sleeping on the
You
couch.
guys work together so good. I appreciate that relationship.
And you know the great thing about us is that the eagle already got through in the trash can, and the only thing we want to do is help the people
Yeah.
succeed. And if we can get everybody to be on the same page that we are on,
Yeah.
it'll be a great, great country.
We're so powerful together, right? Like if we unite, we come together, we're strong.
We're strong.
That's our theme: consolidating the
know.
cannabis influence, consolidating cannabis power, so that we can actually get the MORE Act passed. We can address the wrongs of the Controlled Substance Use Act. We can continue to advocate for consumers. Ian and I are going to work really hard to align our wagons, and he's going to help me and Whitey to navigate our way to make a space for social equity in this 50-year-old organization. This is something that they can do for us, and we can bring
100%.
that specialty. So I'm excited about that.
I'm excited to be working with you guys, honestly. But I have great respect for everything that you guys have been doing and putting out that education that's so important for people. So it is very exciting.
And I think you guys work with Oxterdam or Oxterdam?
Oaksterdam?
Osterdam, right.
Oaksterdam. I don't know about that. Actually.
Okay.
All
I wasn't sure if Normal worked with them. I found out that they too are technical assistants. There's 6 of us that got that. So what I've been thinking about is getting us all to work together so that our money is coordinated. So if they're going to give Green Believers $1 and this one $1 and that one $1, how do we make those dollars have a greater impact instead of us just doing our little piece, they're doing it, and it doesn't really have an impact on the industry. So I think now is why I think that makes a case for us to consolidate. Let's figure out how to work. Because who's coming next? The reason they're lining up these talks to bring, sorry about that, why they're lining up these talks to bring these groups together, I think is because the big boys will be here in a year or two. That they will be able, the big companies
They
will
gonna be here.
Yeah, they will be able to start applying for licensing. Right now they cannot. So they're doing what they need to do to prime the pump, getting ready.
They got the infrastructure in place.
Yes.
They're putting it there.
Yeah, so all of us fighting each other like we're going to be the next one to make it. No.
Yeah.
It's just not my little we're not our 5 little licenses is not going to mean anything
We got to
to
come
these.
together and support each other.
That's it.
We really
That's
do.
what we're going to have to do.
Well, I say it like this: the big boy is gonna walk through the door, and the big boy is gonna find out the hard way that it's hard to play in L.A. Everybody else finding out it's hard way right now. It's hard to play in L.A. There's a whole lot of people in the neighborhood said you're not gonna be able to play unless you have the right team with you, and a whole lot of people is like gonna go belly up because they're gonna give out 600 something temporary license. So when they give us these temporary license out, who's gonna be able to succeed if they don't know their way through this little maze they got going down? And here we are, we sitting back looking at each other saying, do we have enough knowledge to help all the people who doing what they're doing? And that's how it's gonna be.
I think out of the 600, maybe 70 to 100 will actually make it and become tax-paying businesses. Many of those organizations are not going to make. They're not. They're going to get their license.
It's hard.
They're going to get it right.
Hard
It's
business.
very difficult, which we know. We know the cash management piece alone for African Americans is tough. Which I want to flip and get back to Ian on that, because Ian is also an entrepreneur and he's a dad, and those are 2
Actually,
titles
really-
he's very
really
proud
one of my
of.
greatest successes
Yes.
there is 2 little kids. I got a 4-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, and they're the things I'm most proud of over anything.
I knew that about you. I knew that. That's your greatest
Congratulations.
masterpiece, those
Congratulations.
children. But your cash
That's how you
management
shape
solution.
the future, right? Like if you
Yes.
want
Make good people.
to be the change, that's your best opportunity to influence the future is to train the next generation behind you. So, I'm definitely training little mini me's.
I agree. I've done that too. I dedicated my life and parenting years to doing just that, and I'm pleased. What can you? At least they're good people.
Yeah.
They don't do everything I say, but I believe they're. I'd be friends with them
Mine are still listening.
if I didn't know them.
I had a very,
emotional.
I had a very rough 30 years. I had a very rough 30 years. And out of those 30 years, I can say this to the world. I did take care of a whole lot of people, children, who walked in a penitentiary, didn't know nothing. I sent them to school. I made them get their education. They walked out of the penitentiary with GEDs. They was able to come to the world, get trucking jobs and other different kind of jobs. And it's a rule that we are under. The people who was under me don't never stand up for 4 o'clock count. This is what 70 million votes really is about. It's about taking the people from the penitentiary, bringing them back to the street, making them productive in these streets. So each day that I trained one of them, I understood that out of 50 of them, I was going to get 45 of them to stay on the streets. And right now, I can report in and say, my numbers is still correct. It's 45 of them on the streets doing what they're supposed to do. And each day, when we look at the rest of the city and we grab the people out of the neighborhood and we tell them, like, look, it's another way. And right now, we at a forefront in this weed industry where we could train these young men to come in here and learn how to grow weed, know how to cultivate, learn how to manufacture, learn how to run a business. And this is the only thing that we're working on. We're not working on what everybody else is working on, get rich. My richness, what I'm going to receive, is seeing all these people doing good.
Personal fulfillment.
So this is how our life is. And each time when Cheryl and them talk about their children, I just smile because it's time for everybody to look at their children and say, you are a jewel that's worth having, and I'm going to teach you what you need so you can go forward and attack this world in the right manner.
Yeah, good points. Good, excellent points.
No, I think this is super exciting. So, Ian, quickly, I wanted you to talk a little bit about your entrepreneurship project. Ian has a digital cash management solution. I was talking to the social equity owner in Long Beach, and she was like, Cheryl, what are we going to do about our money? I said, well, there's not a lot of choices. You're going to have to develop this cash management plan. But if you're willing to take a risk, so I was clear. So tell us a little bit about your app, your digital cash app solution.
Yeah, it's not so much as an app as it's really a standard banking tool. So what I'm able to do for dispensaries is called cashless ATM. So let's be honest, because of the scheduling of cannabis, which, by the way, the MORE Act, when cannabis gets descheduled, it will open up the financial tools
Which
that
is
we're
one
all
of the main
desperate
things
for.
we need.
We're
Yeah.
all desperate for proper access to banking, where you can just walk in proudly to your local bank and say, I have a
Tax
dispensary,
planning,
I have
just
a
tax
dispensary, I'm
planning.
starting a business,
Yeah.
and this is difficult these days. So because of the ambiguity in the federal law, that it really provides conflicting information. The Treasury Department has a whole document that dedicates exactly what the financial institutions need to do to bank cannabis. Now, this is a completely opposite spectrum from the DEA that says, yeah, well, we don't really care. we don't really care what the Treasury Department says. That's not us. We're all about arresting people and finding people, and so we have a problem to the banking today. So really, there are banks that are definitely supporting the industry, but you drive down the 405 here, you see plenty of advertisements for this bank, that bank, and some of them are working with cannabis-related businesses, but none of them will say that, because you're just not going to stick your hand up and be like, hey, federal government, we're doing this over here. Just no need to draw attention to it. So it doesn't happen. For those, and at LA Normal, we see this as, we've partnered with a few local banks in the LA area who are absolutely looking for cannabis businesses. They're not afraid of the federal government coming in to penalize them. They're going to follow the rules as been laid out by the Treasury Department and follow the rules and the laws of California. So after all that's said and done, so if you're looking for banking access, we've made some of those partnerships at LA Normal. Once again, just go to our website, lanormal.org. We're happy to connect you. But then that's not really what I do. I don't really do banking. I do traditionally outside of cannabis, I do merchant services. So it's credit card processing for attorneys, doctors, Subway sandwich, everything that you see in your everyday life, your bars and restaurants and whatnot. Cannabis is different. Okay, yes. Like it's always different. Everything's always different about cannabis. So
if we just wanted to set up merchant services for my mask business that I'm
Yeah,
starting,
there we go.
I could see
I
you
can do
about
masks.
that. Okay,
You can do traditional Visa, MasterCard for mask, traditional
Okay,
processing.
there you
But there
go.
is no traditional processing for cannabis. Really, the only tool that is compliant that's not going to get you in trouble is using the cashless ATM, the ATM network. So I think everybody in this room right now has an ATM card in their pocket. That's what you can use to purchase your THC because it doesn't go afoul of the Visa MasterCard restrictions. Those guys are pretty clear that they don't want anything to do with cannabis. You know.
Did you guys see the news today that the government just approved the first charter for a bank that's doing crypto? Let me find that for you. I just got that. I know. I'm going to read. They just approved that today. It just happened. Yeah, here it is. Kraken wins first bank charter approval. KRAKEN in Wyoming. Wyoming, the state of Wyoming is the first to approve the Special Purpose Depository Institution, which is the newest state chartered bank to begin exchange in digital assets and currencies.
Okay.
This is major, folks.
Yes.
This is major.
So far, I'm not a huge fan of
cryptocurrency.
I do now. Don't get me wrong. I definitely think that there's a real future coming there, but I'm not sure that we're at it yet. So anyway,
they will be the first U.S. bank in the United States, this Kraken Financial in Wyoming, to provide comprehensive deposit-taking, custody, and fiduciary services for digital assets. The institution will be regulated largely in the same manner as other U.S. banks, and they sent that to me. Get this out to our folks. So interesting.
I wish you wrote more on that.
I'll send this to you.
Okay, cool.
Sure, I thank you guys for coming out, and I thank you for coming out.
Wow, is it over already? I was having so much time fun with you guys.
I had a ball.
You guys, it's so good to see you again too. I mean, like we just don't get to
smoke the vote.
Like we used to. That's right.
Smoke the vote. Smoke the vote. Go vote.normal.org, 70millionvotes.com, or you can always reach us at info@thegreenbelievers.
Say it again.
Info@thegreenbelievers.com. We will connect you to all of us. Hit us up on our website. Hit us up on Instagram. We are out there doing big things. The Green Believers is come. Thank you, Normal LA.
Thank
Congratulations on 50 years.
Thank you
for holding us down for 50 years, and we're going to jump on board and push this thing over.
Well, we out of here for today. I thank everybody for coming. Girly Shirley, she's back. She's going to be hanging out with me. My road dog, my crime partner. You guys have a nice one, and we will see you next Wednesday at 2. Have a good one.